The mightiest empire the world had ever seen fell not by the sword of its enemies, but by the weight of its own greatness. Rome, the eternal city, the empire that once stretched from the sands of Africa to the cold forests of Britain, a civilization so vast, so powerful, it seemed nothing could ever bring it down. But history whispers a darker truth. Even the strongest walls crumble when the cracks form within. In the early centuries, Rome was more than an empire. It was an idea of order, discipline, and destiny. The legions marched with precision. The roads connected continents, and Roman law shaped the foundation of the modern world. From emperors to soldiers, from builders to philosophers, every Roman believed their empire was eternal. They called it imperium sine fine, empire without end. And for a time, it truly seemed so. But as the centuries passed, the flame of greatness began to dim. Wealth poured into Rome like a river, gold, slaves, and treasures from conquered lands. Yet with luxury came complacency. The Romans who once built their empire through courage and sacrifice now chased pleasure and comfort. The baths grew grander, the feasts richer, the morals weaker. The empire that had been born in blood and discipline was now drowning in decadence. Politicians bought loyalty with gold instead of honor. The Senate, once the proud heart of Roman governance, became a theater of corruption. Power no longer came from the will of the people, but from backroom deals and whispered plots. Emperors rose and fell like shadows, some ruling only for days before being assassinated by their own guards. The Roman dream was rotting from the inside. And as greed and power struggles tore the empire apart, another silent enemy spread: inflation and economic collapse. The endless wars had drained the treasury. To pay their armies, emperors began minting coins mixed with cheap metals. The silver that once symbolized Roman stability was now worthless. Prices soared, trade faltered, and ordinary citizens began to lose faith in the empire that once promised them greatness. Beyond the borders, the world was changing. The empire's enemies, tribes they once mocked as barbarians, were growing stronger. The Goths, the Vandals, the Huns, they watched as Rome weakened, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And yet within Rome's walls, the elite continued to feast, blind to the storm that was gathering. Then came the chaos of civil war. Generals turned against each other, provinces rebelled, and the unity that once defined Rome shattered. In a desperate attempt to maintain control, Emperor Diocletian split the empire into east and west, hoping that smaller pieces would be easier to govern. But instead, he had sealed Rome's fate. The Eastern Empire, rich and stable, would one day become Byzantium. The Western Empire, drained and broken, was left to bleed. By the early 5th century, the inevitable began. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Rome, the city that had ruled the world, was sacked by the Visigoths. Flames consumed temples, statues fell, and citizens who once called themselves masters of the world were reduced to refugees in their own streets. For the first time in 800 years, Rome had fallen to an enemy's hand. The world gasped. If Rome could fall, was anything truly eternal. But the empire limped on, a ghost of its former self, its leaders weak, its people divided, its faith in itself gone. And finally, in 476 AD, the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, a boy too young to bear the weight of history, was forced to give up his crown. He handed it not to a Roman, but to a barbarian king. The Western Roman Empire was no more. A silence settled over the once mighty capital. The marble pillars crumbled, the legions disappeared, and the voice that had commanded the known world faded into dust. The eternal city had fallen. Yet Rome's story did not truly end. Its laws, its language, its architecture, they lived on, shaping Europe and the world that came after. Rome died, but its spirit became the foundation of Western civilization itself. And so, the fall of the Roman Empire is not just a story of destruction. It's a mirror reflecting the fate of every great power that forgets its purpose. No empire, no nation, no civilization is invincible when corruption replaces courage and luxury drowns discipline. Because in the end, no sword can destroy an empire faster than its own decay. Greatness is fragile. And Rome reminds us that even the mightiest empires do not fall in battle. They fall in spirit. This was the story of the fall of the Roman Empire, when greatness collapsed. You're watching History of Time.